having a mortgage with someone and then splitting up, what happens next? So working with a number of couples, inevitably some will split up while still having a mortgage. So it's really important that they understand what happens next, whether someone can take over the mortgage, or whether they have to sell, and whether they can buy a new property in the future. Often the first starting point is when a couple split, only one of you may want to take over the mortgage. Now the other person who subsequently needs to be taken off the mortgage, they may be owed money. So you may have to raise money either through equity within the property or be given money maybe from a family member to give to them so they get the money that they are owed. Now, of course, whilst you may want to take over the mortgage, you might not actually be able to get the borrowing necessary to take over your existing mortgage. Now, you may look at it and think, but I can make the mortgage payments at the moment. Why can't I just take over the mortgage? You still need to be able to borrow the loan amount. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be by yourself. Now, if you have maybe a sibling or parent who can come onto the mortgage and do a joint borrower sole proprietor mortgage, then you can take over the loan, remove your ex-partner from the mortgage and take it on yourself. Then in the future, you may be with someone new or your income may have gone up enough that you can take over the mortgage balance by yourself and remove your family member from the mortgage. Of course, another thing to consider is sometimes when a couple buy a property, one of them may contribute a bigger proportion of the deposit than the other person. Now, when you buy a property as a couple, and if one of you is doing this, you can get charges over the property. And you do this through the solicitor, which helps get you your deposit back if you subsequently separate and decide to sell the property. So if you are buying as a couple and one of you is contributing a significant chunk more of deposit than the other person, you really need to be thinking about what would happen in the future if you needed to sell the property. And of course, when it comes to selling the property, you work with your solicitor who will ensure that, providing you have the right legal documentation in place when you bought the property, to make sure that you get your percentage of the deposit back. Now, of course, if you decide to sell the property and you want to work out how much deposit you're going to have to buy a new one in the future, obviously you look at the current property value, so you need to get it valued by more than one estate agent if possible. Then you need to get an up-to-date redemption statement from your lender to give you your mortgage balance. So you're going to take your mortgage balance from your current property value. That's going to give you your equity. Then each of you is going to have a share of the property. So one of you may have 65%, the other may have 35%. And then of course you've got to consider any legal fees to be taken from it, moving fees, estate agent fees with listing the property. Then once all that's taken care of, that will leave you with your net figure, which you can take forward to buying a new property with. So you've decided to sell the property, you know your net figure once you've taken the mortgage away, you've got your percentage of the equity and you've considered all payments due to solicitor, estate agents, etc. You need to bear in mind that if you bought that property as a first-time buyer, then you may have stamp duty costs involved as you're now a non-first-time buyer. Now you can move forward with buying a new property. Obviously, then you can speak to a mortgage broker to work out how much you can borrow by yourself and obviously use your deposit as a top up for that. Remember that a mortgage broker has access to numerous different lenders, so they may be able to maximize your borrowing when it comes to buying, because you may be in a certain area that you don't want to move from. You may be close to family, you may be close to shops, whatever, or work, whatever it might be. So make sure you're talking to a mortgage broker so they can maximize your borrowing capacity. Now, of course, before selling the property, one of you may wish to stay in the property and continue making the mortgage payments. That's potentially feasible. You could, if you can afford the mortgage payments by yourself, and you have a current mortgage product, you could look to carry on making those mortgage payments, but you have to bear in mind that the other person who's leaving the property may actually want to sell the property. They may find someone they want to buy with. They may want to come off the mortgage completely. So whilst sometimes when I talk to people separating, one of them wants to carry on with the mortgage and review their options in the future, it's not always feasible. So when you are in this situation, it's vitally important you're talking to a mortgage broker, talking through your options and making sure that you make the best decision for you. If you're in a situation where you own a property and you have a mortgage on it and you're separating from a partner and you're unsure what your options are, you can comment below and I'm more than happy to walk it through with you and to help you understand all possible options moving forward.